When you're ready to print, choosing print options can help you save time and save paper because you can make sure your printout will look just the way you want it. In this lesson, we'll view a worksheet in Page Layout View, change the paper orientation, set grid lines to display and print, and then we'll print a worksheet. And then finally, we'll exit Microsoft Excel. Here's our payroll calculator worksheet. We're ready to print it, so let's get started. First thing I'm actually going to do is make sure I have my name somewhere in the actual spreadsheet. So down here, I clicked in cell A21 and typed my name. Then I pressed enter. Now what I'm going to actually do, I want to go up to the Page Layout tab. Well, you'll notice I'm already on Page Layout. So when I click up here, we're actually going to look at the page layout. So I'd also like to notice, you point out to you these dotted lines. They indicate the default print area, which is the area that will be printed. Excel is smart enough to figure out that you usually just want to print up through the cells that contain some kind of data. If you ever need to print more or less than that, you can use the print area button here in the page setup group. With print area, what you would do, you would select the area that you'd want to print, go to print area, and then set the print area. That would be the only thing that would print. And when you do that, what you'll notice is you get the dotted lines around what is actually going to print. I'm actually going to clear the print area that I chose and move on. Now, in the page setup group, you'll also notice the orientation buttons. Under orientation here, if I click this and I click on landscape, it actually changes the orientation of how my document is actually going to print. The best way to see this is if I go to the View tab and go to the Page Layout View under Workbook Views. This shows me that it's going to be an orientation layout. I'm going to go back to Page Layout and I'm going to change back to Portrait. So I'm at Portrait, and then when I click on Orientation Landscape, you can see that it changes the way the page is going to be printed. I'm going to change back to Portrait. Now what I want to look at is over here under the Sheet Options group. In the Sheet Options, what you'll notice is I have two checks under grid lines. So it's going to actually print the grid lines, and actually we can view the grid lines. When I click on those check boxes, you'll notice that down here you can actually see some differences, especially when I click on View. When I click on that View button, take that checkbox away, it actually takes away the grid lines. So I will not be able to see the grid lines, and they will not be printed on my screen because there's no check mark there. So what I want to do is click on View and click on Print. Most people will agree that printing the grid lines will make it easier to see. So I'm going to click on Save. I'm going to click on the File tab, and then I want to click on the Print on the navigation bar here on the left. When I click on Print, what you'll see is you see some options here in the center, and then over on the far right you actually see a preview of how your printed copy will look. It also lets you change the settings here in the middle. In fact, it can be more useful to change settings here in the File tab when you choose Print than it is to change them in the actual workbook, because you see the actual preview. So notice when I click the orientation button, I have an option to choose Portrait or Landscape. When I click on Landscape, you'll see that it automatically shows me what it's going to look like over here as a preview for the document when it prints for the printout. When I click on Landscape again, I'm going to change it back to Portrait. I want it to be Portrait Orientation. The grid lines are showing up here as well because we selected Print Grid Lines checkbox. So if we want to go back and change that, we'd have to go back and change that and remove the checkbox. This will make it easier to read. So let's review the settings. First of all, I'm going to look here. It's the printer that's connected to my computer. I want to print the active sheet and not any other sheets in the workbook, so only that sheet. But if I click here, the drop down comes down. I have other selections that I can choose. Printing one-sided, it's collated, it's going to be Portrait, 8.5 by 11, normal margins and no scaling. If I wanted to make any changes, I could just click each option and make that change. I would click, now that I'm satisfied with everything, I'm going to click the Print button here. I could also notice before we click the print button, I can indicate the number of copies that I want. When I print the document, it automatically takes me back to the worksheet. Now what I'm going to do is exit Microsoft Excel. So I go File and Exit. Before I do that, what should I do? Save. I always say save early, save often. So File and then Exit. And now if you want to learn how to print worksheet formulas instead of just the results, which is what we just did, you can check out your textbooks, and you can also get an introduction to the scale to fit option, which makes it easier to print larger documents of data on a page if you're trying to reduce your paper use.